Hello everybody, and welcome to another adventure here in Kerbal Space Program 2, and it's going to be a big one. Or at least it would be. Yeah. As usual, things don't really work out as they should, at least not in the beginning. That's why we always do things
again.
Yes, and second time's the charm. And here we have our rocket ascending to the skies. If you have been following my live streams for the Jool-5 science mission that I did, well, this is it. This is the video where I put everything, all of the 4 or 5, I can't remember, live streams of many hours into one condensed mission video for your enjoyment, so you get only the action-packed sequences and not me fiddling around with maneuver nodes for hours at a time. Anyway, we are skipping through most of the ascent here because it took quite a while since this is a large ship, and Kerbal Space Program 2, while the performance has increased, it is still in early access and things went a lot slower than you're watching here because I've sped up the footage for your pleasure. Alright, the thing is in orbit and you can already spot that spaceplane up front. Yes, we're going to use that on Laythe, but not only that, and we'll get back to that later when we are there actually. First we need, of course, to get everything situated, and we now have a sneak peek into the big cargo bay where we have actually 3 lander vehicles. Why is that? Well, you'll see soon enough, but first we have to get to Jool itself, and for that we're going to use a few gravity assist maneuvers as soon as we are there at the gas giant's sphere of influence. But first, of course, we have to leave Kerman's sphere of influence, and that's where we're starting our first long burn. I think it's 2,500 meters per second. But the delta V meter shows us we have almost 15,000 meters per second, and that is a lie. Yes, unfortunately the game is still a bit buggy in that regard. I really hope they're going to fix that with an upcoming patch really soon, because knowing how much fuel you have left is really important information. And while I was ranting, we're already here at Jool. And we're doing science, of course. Every time we're doing a sphere of influence change, we're going to do some science. We're going to do science when we're landed. And what you see me doing here is I'm going to get the gravity assist from Laythe that I alluded to earlier. Usually, Laythe or Tylo are in a position where you can get an easy gravity assist from them when you enter Jool's sphere of influence. And with that, you need really minuscule amounts of delta V to get actually captured from this planetary system. Alright, so we're approaching things here, and there is Laythe coming up. We're not going to land on it yet, we're just using it to get... Oh, what was that? Yes, let's slow this down. Well, that was still too fast. What might that be? Well, apparently it's one of the discoverables that they placed on the planet. So discoverables are things that you can discover when you play Kerbal Space Program 2. And this is footage from another playthrough I did, and that's actually what it is on Laythe. It's in the southern hemisphere somewhere. And you will find it when you do the missions. Yes, so this is something you can't miss when you really do the missions of Kerbal Space Program 2. And we're passing Laythe. Now say goodbye to the blue pearl of moon and say hello to Tylo once we adjust our orbit just a little bit. Alright, that's what we did here. And as you can already see how steep the angle is around Tylo, Tylo has a lot of gravity, so if you can use Tylo for a gravity assist, do it, because it's going to get you the most benefits of that maneuver. Unfortunately, we have to spend a lot of delta V to get into a close orbit, and why do we have to get into a close orbit? Well, because of the... Oh! Look at that, what I'm doing here is babysitting that orbital experiment, something I had to do a lot during this mission. And yeah, I decoupled the lander without a pilot. Fortunately, Kerbals have their jetpacks and they are not scared of anything. Look at that, they're not even tethered to their ship. But that doesn't matter, we're gonna get on board of that thing and it's not going to drift away uncontrollably. Yeah, what I mentioned earlier is I had to babysit that orbital lab experiment because when I played this, the update which improved how that works, and you can just time warp and it will gather the science whenever it's above the region that it wants to gather science from. When I played this mission here, I had to do that manually, still the fix wasn't there. And here I'm watching my radial tanks because I need to drop them as soon as they're empty to shed the weight. Yeah, Tylo needs a lot of delta V to land and get back up from, about 2,500 meters per second in each direction. And here is something, well, I decoupled the lander stage before I shut down the engine and there was still some fuel left, but fortunately, I think this is a bug, but in this case it was fortunate for me that I could still deactivate the engine on that spent stage, even though it did not have any control pod or pilot or anything. And while this was already a kind of Kerbal landing, on stream it was even more Kerbal-y. Other direction, other direction. No! Ah, come on. Well, we landed on Tylo. Huh? Yep, those were fun times. But over here we now have a almost perfect landing because it didn't break anything. And our Kerbal, not scientists, because we don't have any roles for Kerbals yet, maybe? I don't know, maybe this will come in a future update, but this Kerbal has planted a flag, has collected surface samples, and they are now back to orbit. And since Tylo doesn't have an atmosphere, we're going to do our gravity turn really soon as we are high enough to clear those mountains. And yes, with a few hundred meters per second of delta V to spare, we can reach our main ship over there. I don't have a fancy name for it, I just called it a JFS 5000 for Jool-5 science or something like that. I mean, if you have a better suggestion for a name for this beauty, put it in the comments below. And also, if you enjoy this type of video but haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe. I'm really trying to reach the 100,000 subscribers until the end of the year because I'm doing this for 10 years on YouTube now, and I think it's time to get up there. What do you think? Anyway, now we're going to Laythe. We had that beautiful pass through, or not really pass through, we just watched Vall zip by us while we were watching the dance of the moons around the gas giant Jool. And my first attempt of getting into orbit around Laythe involved trying to do it by aerobrake. And yeah, as you might guess, things didn't work out as planned. So this happened. Again. Yep, we had to do that again. Outside of the atmosphere this time and spend all of the fuel, so we didn't have any fuel savings by using the atmosphere to brake, unfortunately. Maybe this is better with the patch that came after that. I haven't tried it, but it worked out anyway. And here you can see not the space plane getting out of the vehicle, but this blue little thing. What might it be? The keen-eyed among you that already know all the science part might have recognized the ball-shaped module near the bottom of this thing. And this is sort of the diving bell, I think it's called the Dunkin science module for marine science collection. The idea of this little lander is that it lands somewhere on land, somewhere where the spaceplane then could land later, and then use the tiny wheels to drive it to a nearby body of water, like this here. So I drove forward, I plunged in, and I thought now I could do the marine science. And the game tells me I'm splashed. Well, then it tells me I'm landed, now it tells me I'm splashed, but it tells me it's an invalid research location. So I tried again, still with the rocket pods attached, and even further out, no chance.
Again.
Alright, so we did it again, and this time I was really quite far away from land to make sure that I'm actually in the water, in the eyes of the game at least. So yeah, this worked out, and the marine science thingy was collecting science, and of course we also grabbed some surface samples, in this case water samples. Now that we had that done, let's get our spaceplane down and retrieve both the science as well as our Kerbal. We don't have any need for that blue diving bell anymore, so we're going to leave it in the water down on Laythe. And yeah, things were a bit complicated by the distance between the diving bell and the land, or the nearest shore where the spaceplane could land realistically. But yeah, that's something to think about a little bit later. First we need to get this thing down onto the surface. And while we do that, we can watch the re-entry heat effects on the wings and other parts of this plane. Things got hot and the warning indicators blinked a lot, but we managed to get through it unscathed. And you can see on the left-hand side of the screen that the default name and number vehicle, which is our diving bell, is waiting for us there. And it's still 12 kilometers away. And yeah, I can't land there, that's water, and we won't be able to launch again from water. So let's try on this patch of land here. It's probably the closest thing where we can actually land this plane. And let's see how that goes.
Again.
Well, badly. And it got a lot worse, and there's actually a dedicated video to that, how to not land an orbital class spaceplane or something, in, I don't know, homage to SpaceX's how not to land an orbital class booster. Yeah, but this was then my final attempt, final because it worked, and I didn't have to repeat it again. We're fortunately less than 10 kilometers away, but unfortunately it's still quite a long swim. So yeah, swim the Kerbal does. Fortunately, it's capable of doing so. Fortunately, they don't need any food or other life support things to sustain their movement. And we can already see the shore over there. Why can we see it already? Because I sped up the footage a few thousand times or something. This was like, I don't know, half an hour of swimming or something. Yeah, it was really tedious, but it was the only way to really solve this problem, unfortunately. But then again, we were able to grab some more science, so yay, more science is always great. We can already see the space plane in the distance over there. And the idea is to just get on board and fly up back to the ship. But unfortunately, the landing gear disappeared.
Again.
And I had a lot of save games in between, so one of them had the plane still in working condition, and the Kerbal was able to get on board. I forgot their names, and their names are all kind of weird. And the only thing that I know is that the pilot of this plane is Valentina Kerman, who will get us back up to the ship now. Well, not now, I decided to fast forward a little bit to a beautiful sunrise. I really think whoever worked on the graphics for Laythe, and I think a lot of that work has been done by one of the newer members of the KSP2 team, who goes by the nickname Blackrack, and did a lot of great visual works for KSP1, and they did great on Laythe. So Laythe is really I don't know, if you have the time and the skills to get there in KSP2, you should, because it's quite the sight to behold. And yes, we are now back in orbit, almost just a small adjustment burn here, and then we have to get back to our mothership. There it is! And the docking on that is a bit more tedious, because the docking port is kind of on the dorsal, ventral, what's what? Dorsal is, I think, up, and ventral is on the bottom. I don't know. The docking port is like on the dorsal side of the space plane, so it's a bit of a faff to get it lined up correctly, but we managed to do it anyway. Next up, Vall. And this is where we're going to use our pink special lander, which is another diving bell, because Vall also has some liquid in it, or on it. Rather, maybe in it as well, I don't know. But on it is the thing that we're going to look for. First, of course, we need to get in orbit, as usual. But this time we're not looking for an equatorial orbit, more like almost a polar orbit, because the thing that we want to get to is sort of, I call it a scar, maybe that's actually the official name for it. But there is kind of a scar in the surface of Vall. You can see it on the left-hand side of the screen, almost at the terminator between day and night side. And there is where we want to land this pink little thing. Unlike Laythe, this is now unmanned, so I'm going to need the antenna to control it. We have a probe core on there and the antenna for control. And here we are already above the scar, and we're going to land that uncurbled, uncrewed? Let's call it uncrewed. And the idea is to get it as close as possible to the scar, land the lander as close as possible to it, then get the Kerbal with the diving bell together into the ocean, water, liquid, whatever is in that scar, it's liquid. So we're going to get the Kerbal inside the diving bell there, and then get the Kerbal back to the lander and back to orbit. Let's see if that plan works. Okay, again we're going to get the lander out of our spaceship, and then of course back down to the surface. So some kind of repetitive precision landing maneuvers required, because I need to hit the same target twice. And I didn't completely succeed in that, unfortunately, at least not in the first try. First I thought maybe 20 kilometers is not so far with jetpacks and Vall's lower gravity, but yeah, it would still be tedious and I didn't want to do that. So I thought, okay, well, let's just land there and save, because if I don't have enough fuel left when I hop over there with the lander, then I can still recall that save game here and still move the Kerbal by jetpack or on foot over there. And as usual, of course, we need to commemorate this momentous occasion by planting a flag. And still no luck with my custom flag icon that I selected, because the game still reverts to the standard flag icon, which it does since the very first version of KSP2 from February 2023, and that's quite annoying, but yeah. I recognize that this is maybe not the highest priority on the list for the developers. And if you can see the Delta V readout on the right hand side, we now have less than 950 meters per second of Delta V, and that's calling it quite close when we want to get back into orbit, because Vall, if you want to get up there, you really need something around 800 meters per second, maybe more, but we're not in an equatorial orbit. What we're also not is upright, unfortunately. So yeah, the idea was that this thing would be standing when I get here, and it isn't. So these landing gears probably were not beefy enough. But then I decided to maybe we can rock this back and forth and see if we can just launch it like that. And we did. Back when we did that on stream, I think it was just a few days after was it called the SLIM? The Surface Lunar Mission? Something like that. Something that JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, sent up, and it also tipped to the wrong side, but unlike them, I managed to recover it fully. Alright, now while we watch this thing drop into the liquid, you can maybe see the reflections of Jool in the liquid over there. You can see down here the planet, and you can see it up top when we scroll the camera back upwards, or pan the camera upwards rather. And fortunately, the marine science experiment works perfectly over here. We're a bit far away from the lander, I have to admit, but yeah, we still had enough fuel to get it close at least to the shore, and the rest of the way I, well, just used the jetpack. So good thing that these Kerbal jetpacks are so efficient and have so much fuel in them. I waited until the spaceship, the mothership so to speak, was almost above me, and then tried to get into an orbit almost, well, as lined up as best as I could. And you can see the Delta V readout on the left hand side going slower and slower, and we ended up at 38 meters per second of Delta V, but we were in orbit. So well, that's a win. A close one, but a win. And of course, since I didn't have enough Delta V to do any maneuvers, I had to do them with the mothership. And then we got there back into the cargo bay, of course, with the RCS fuel. So, well, I am a bit of a fool with RCS, but in this case, everything worked out fine. Alright, next target, Bob. And on Bob we also have a specific thing that I wanted to visit. Because I heard about it, I saw a certain thumbnail of a certain British YouTuber, and I was a bit annoyed because I wanted to find it first, but I didn't. So yeah, this is going to be the hunt for the dead Kraken on Bob, which I was looking for before the Force Science update and never was able to find on Bob. But they added it with those discoverables that are added to the game with the 0.2 update, the Force Science update. And some people in chat were nice enough to point out exactly where I should point the lander. And that's exactly what I did. So here we have the lander. Fortunately, since Bob has such low gravity with the 2,500 meters per second of Delta V that the lander has, it's really easy to get there. Alright, adjusting the trajectory. You can see those craters over there where I was headed, and down there is something. And that something is a dead Kraken or space beast or whatever you want to call it. Petrified Kraken, I don't know. The weird thing is, well, it also was weird in the original game. In the original game we had this kind of comic style baby Kraken with an eye that had dropped out and lay beside it or something. Here we have like, I don't know, it looks like something out of the Alien movies. It looks a lot more mature, and it also looks like it is made out of bones that have petrified or fossilized or something, which is weird because real Kraken, I don't know what the correct biological term is, but these octopi and Kraken and whatever, shellfish? No, I don't think shellfish is the correct name. Whatever, they're not made of bone, or at least not that many bones. They don't have rib cages like that, so this is actually a very peculiar beast that does not match any biology I am aware of. And it's also really gigantic. Maybe in the dust we collect we can find some hints as to where it comes from, what it does, why it does what it does. Anyway, we did that. We were not eaten, fortunately, so it's not alive. But let's have a good look at it again. As I said, a lot more, I don't know, mature looking than the thing in KSP1, that dead baby Kraken. But on the other hand, that a little bit more childish type of dead alien, I think it fits better to Kerbals. You know, I mean, look at the Kerbals. They're not serious, are they? I mean, they're kind of funny-looking space frogs or fungi or whatever. I think the biology of Kerbals is still not completely solved. Anyway, we did what we could over here. We gathered all the science that we could, and then we headed back up to space. Goodbye, dead space beast, wherever you may have come from. One final look on the surface where it lays with its tentacles, arms, whatever you want to call them, feelers, in a almost circle. So the question is this an adult or is this still a baby? Because even at this size, it could be dangerous to large spaceships, even as large as mine over there on the left. But if it is just an, I don't know, infant, an infant space kraken, then I don't know, I don't think I want to see the big ones. Anyway, now that we have Pol out of the way, we had Vall, we had Laythe, and we had Tylo. Now it's time for the final moon of the Jool system, and it is Pol. It's the furthest away, so you can see Jool getting further away from us, very much so, and we now have our encounter with Pol. At least we did the maneuver that got us there. Bopp and Pol, they have different inclinations compared to the more inner moons like Vall and Tylo and Laythe. They are almost, or maybe completely on the what's it called? Equatorial plane of Jool. But Pol and Bopp, they are kind of out there, so to speak. And now we're going to head down. But here as well, I also wanted to discover something. And I found a minor spoiler somewhere on the forums where somebody posted a picture of the surface of Pol and said, there is something. And here we have something. You see that ball-shaped object at a little bit above of my lander? That's where we headed, and I have no idea what it is because I have never seen it before, or at least before trying this. And here it is. What might it be? Is it, I don't know, a skull or something? It looks really weird. I think we need to get closer to investigate. And closer we are. I'm trying to adjust the camera so we have a better look here. Unfortunately, the camera controls in KSP2 are still a bit wonky. And what's also wonky is trying to land here with landing gear. I tried it a few times and I was always bouncing away, so I decided to do it without. Because Pol has really low gravity. It's like if you jump up and use RCS just a little bit, you're almost in orbit. And as you can see here, look how slow the Kerbal is falling. And so I just decided to not use the landing gear at all, and this was the right call, at least on this surface. Getting more surface samples, from whatever that might be, the description kind of describes it as some kind of volcanic sulfur bubble that tried to escape but then got frozen when it left the surface of Pol. And yeah, we have our flag, and let's maybe have a better look at this sulfur bubble. So if this is a sulfur bubble and it, I don't know, got frozen once it tried to rise up from the surface of Pol, basically it's a frozen space fart. Am I wrong in saying that? What do you think? Let me know in the comments if I'm completely off my rocker here, or if a sulfur bubble is trying to escape from a planet is like a planetary space fart. Alright. since we're so close to a different region, because these discoverables count as their own region, we can just hop down there and grab some additional science with the lander experiments as well as with the test tube over there. I wonder how many test tubes there are in the backpack of Ed Head Kerman. Yeah, that's his or her name, Ed Head. Alright, we're done with Pol, at least with the surface. We still have to get back up into orbit and then, of course, join the rest of the crew and the ship that's waiting there. Unfortunately on the night side, but yeah, with the help of the docking alignment mod, it still was easy to get there. And now we're leaving Pol's orbit. First, what I did was to just get into a normal orbit around Jool outside of Pol's sphere of influence, so I could get had a better chance to get an encounter with Tylo. I mentioned almost at the beginning of the video that we can use Tylo as a gravity assist, and here this is actually what I'm doing. I'm using Tylo's gravity to increase my maneuver strength. I don't know what to call it. Basically, to get to Kerbin a lot easier than if I would just have to use fuel without the gravity assist of Tylo. And we're gone. Goodbye, Jool. And hello, Kerbin. Well, not yet. This was after a lot of time spent fiddling with maneuver nodes to finally get there. I think I even had to do another orbit around the sun to finally get a Kerbin encounter that didn't cost me all of my fuel. And as you can see on the right-hand lower side, we have we have more than 3,000 meters per second left. And that is still a lie. As I mentioned at the beginning, when we had like 14,000 meters per second, that's not true. And fortunately, it was still enough to get us into a stable orbit. And then I decided, let's see how much we can squeeze out of those hydrogen tanks. So first, let's get our inclination into a little bit better orientation. Basically, I tried to get into an equatorial orbit, which I managed to do, sort of. And then I thought, okay, let's get the periaps or the apoaps as low as possible with the fuel that's remaining. And while the maneuver node would have said, okay, we can circularize, the fuel tank said no. So here was where the lie fell apart, and we had 0 meters per second of delta V left. And now it's time to get back down onto the surface. Valentina Kerman takes the plane to get back to the KSC. Yes, what we're doing now is we're circularizing our orbit completely now. And after we've done that, we wait until the KSC is on the night side, not on the night side, of course, on the day side, so we can aerobrake at the right point and get to it. And this is also something I already posted into a different video, which is, I think, called the smoothest spaceplane landing yet. You may have already seen this also. If you are a patron or YouTube member, you might have already seen that video a lot earlier than other people, because if you sign up for one of the higher tiers on my Patreon page or as a YouTube member, you can get early access to my videos, and you will also be mentioned on the right side of my screen over here right now, where all of these wonderful people are that support my channel and believe in what I do. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It really helps going forward, knowing that there are people out there that actually like what I do here. And what I do like is getting a lot of science back from long missions. So here we are with our spaceplane landing, and that was probably the smoothest spaceplane landing I ever did in Kerbal Space Program 2. So let's see how much we brought back. And the tally is 14,089 science points for samples and 18,109 for data. more than 32,000 science points in one mission that took only a measly 12 years and 209 days. So yeah, decide for yourself if that's worth it. Anyway, this concludes my epic Jool-5 science mission Kerbal Space Program 2. I'm going to leave this vehicle in orbit because it could actually be reused for a future mission. What should I do with it? Post it in the comments and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.